I'm going to talk to you today about making designing training easy, because I am one of the few people, I think, who really enjoys this. A lot of people find the training design, they feel like it's wading through treacle. It takes too long. It's so complicated. It's so boring. And I've been doing it for 25 years and I really, really love it. And I don't find it difficult to do. Not to say that I don't have my challenges, but I just want to share with you really some of the things that I do. And, you know, you're all experienced training people and you'll do a lot of this. No question, you will do a lot of this. Maybe you've fallen into bad habits. Maybe there'll be one or two things that are new to you, and maybe it will just be a good refresher. But hopefully over the hour, you will go away with something that will help make you fall a little bit back in love with training design again. So very quickly, a little bit about me. I've just put a few pictures up there. The top one is Liverpool, because that is my home city. I live on the outskirts of Liverpool, don't have the accent, didn't grow up here. We moved here when I was, well, I moved to Merseyside probably about 20 years ago now. I love my cheese and wine. Thankfully, I go to Zumba classes, which helps keep the effects of the cheese and wine in check. I've got two amazing teenage kids who make me proud every day. And this picture in that bottom corner there is The Money Heist, which is what I have been binge watching recently. And we finished it last night. So I'm looking for something new to binge watch, which is why I was asking in the chat, what are you watching? Because I'd like some new ideas. So that's just a little bit about me and about my businesses, to keep it again very, very simple. It seems like I do a lot. When I started working for myself about 15 years ago, I set up Keystone Development and Training Limited, which is predominantly a training design business. So it focused on designing bespoke programs for large organizations. Sometimes I would go in and help deliver it either directly or with associates, but more often than not, that was handed over to the organization to run for themselves. So I have always designed for other people to deliver, and I think that brings in a slightly different mindset than when you're just designing for yourself. A little while after that, I decided to start doing some bite-sized stuff, and James has very kindly allowed me to become an approved supplier to the L&D Mastermind with my Power Hour training materials, which are 1 hour ready-to-use off-the-shelf training materials in a range of topics. So as hopefully you will believe at the end of this, they are all designed in detail and ready to use. So that is something. And then last year, like James, I set up a community, which is called the Training Designers Club. You can be a member of both. So it's a focus on slightly different areas. And I still do all of those things. The one thing that binds them is they are all training design based services. So they feel quite different on the outset, but they've all got training design at their heart. So it's something that I've always come back to throughout my whole career, which is why I'm happy to try and share just a little bit of what I've picked up over the years with you today. So just to quickly go through the overview of what we are here to do today before 12 o'clock is to take the pain out of designing training by focusing on four pillars of success. I find that people don't like training because they overcomplicate it, if we're honest, and you don't enjoy it. And when you don't enjoy it, you keep putting it off, don't you? And then it ends up taking a lot longer. So our objectives for today are to have a think about why you might be making training design harder for yourself than it should be, to follow a simple process to design an effective training session in the shortest time possible. Use the 4 pillars to guide you and maximize engagement in the simplest way possible. I'm a great believer in keeping things simple. Now, just before we go any further, these 4 pillars aren't specifically for virtual training sessions, but they do apply. They are fundamental principles, so whether you're designing for a traditional face-to-face session, which hopefully you will be next year, or whether you are designing for virtual sessions, the principles do still apply. They haven't changed. So before I go any further, let's just open up the chat. When I talk about training design to different people, I find that we're often talking at cross purposes. So in the chat, what does training design mean to you? There's no right and wrong answers to this. So let's see what people have to say. Just going to minimize the cameras so I can see what's going on. Oh, hi, Bev in Warrington there. Make sure if you're chatting, you're sharing with everybody. I can't see any answers just yet. You might all be thinking.
So we have one from Mike, designing an effective learning solution.
Yes, just got that now. Thank you. I think there may be a slight lag. So, okay, good question. We're putting together short workshops, but bigger projects. So, okay, so it can be a whole project. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a nice one, Stephen. Determining how to teach it. I like that.
Yeah. Create the fishbone structure of the training.
See, this is fascinating. You say, what do you mean by training design? And everybody thinks of something different.
Yeah.
So these are quite big picture designs. We haven't got anybody lost in the detail just at the moment. So I quite like that, determining how to do it. I like the fact that someone's thinking about the structure with the goals right up front as well. It's about working out how to deliver messages, ideas or inspiration that fit with or fulfill the needs of the business at that time. Bryony, you should get yourself a little top of the class sticker there. I'm loving that. Okay, keep your ideas coming, but I'm really, really pleased to see that no one has put in there how to make PowerPoint slides pretty, because quite often that's what people think training design is, and it makes me want to cry, frankly, when people think that's training design. I mean, it is part of training design, but it's a teeny weeny little part of training design. It is so much more, and I have a favourite quote by Steve Jobs, which is, design is not just what it looks and feels like, design is how it works. And I haven't put that in there because it's not off the top of my head, but that's what training design is. So all the things that you're saying there about how to structure it, how to bring it to life, how to meet objectives, it's all part of design. And it's a pretty big topic when we think about it, isn't it? So I did an article on LinkedIn maybe last year when I got quite cross with people saying that 3 days prep was too long for a course. Of course 3 days prep is too long for a course, but I think a lot of people do confuse design and prep. Oh, Kelly in St Helens as well. Hello, I'm in Rain Hill. Nice to meet you. Oh, someone's drawing. Unless that's me. So design is where some of the things that I think incorporate design is where we identify the concepts and the key points that need to be covered, we structure it, we think about how we're going to cover it, we create an outline, we create exercises to bring it to life, we think about the pre and the post course elements, so it's not just the session itself, we write a detailed session plan, we create slides, we create delegate materials, we write case studies and role plays, and we get it all approved by stakeholders. So it's massive. Training design covers so many things, and I think sometimes people forget everything that's involved with that. What preparation is when we familiarise ourselves with the content, we make sure that we're ready to go, we do our final checks, and you make your own shortcut notes. When I write a training session, let's say it's a one-day traditional course, I would probably have at least 12 pages in a session plan to do that, usually more. But on the day, I take 2 sides of A4 because all the detailed design has been done in advance. So this is going to be our first test, Petra. We're going to see if this tech works. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I have been kicked out in the past. Petra, I'm going to ask you to put in the chat that link that I sent you. And
Okay.
if people can copy and paste that link into a separate browser or type it into your phone, you should be invited to answer this question. So let's just think about how long it typically takes you to fully design a one-day training event. Now, whether that's, or what, you know, I'm talking old world now when we used to do face-to-face. If you're thinking virtual, maybe think, you know, a 2-hour session, maybe that would be the equivalent. So if you're struggling to make that work, just let me know if it crashes us out.
So the link is in a chat.
Yeah.
But well, it worked for me, but I think that if I start playing with it myself, that will be recorded. So I'm not going to do it.
So let's just see if this works. Yay! Brilliant.
Cool.
Ah, I'm so glad. This is the best thing about working with other trainers is that they're quite tech savvy. So people work out how to do things, which is brilliant, which you don't get if you're training forklift truck drivers necessarily.
No. That's for sure.
Okay, just give it another, I'll just give it another 20 seconds or so.
Yep.
I mean, I guess if you are counting in the research that you do as well, then that's going to make it a little bit longer. I didn't count the actual research when I considered how long it takes me to design a training event. I mean, research can take as long as you've got, can't it? Okay, so it looks like we've got a pretty even split by those who have voted. So anything from 3 days to 8 days for a one-day training event. So I'm very intrigued as to know what occurs if we're taking 8 days over it. Generally, I would say for a traditional workshop, face-to-face workshop, if it's taking between 3 and 5 days, you're probably about right. Depends on what it is you're covering. So let's just have a think about, I'm going to take it forward to the next slide if I can. Let's see if this will work. There we go. So the next question is, how long do you think it should take? Oops. Ah, seen a bit more variety here.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I don't know how many people have voted, by the way, so it's I'm just keeping an eye on the fact that we've got some pretty weird numbers, and I forgot to bring my glasses with me, so I can't see the specific numbers.
We have 29% in 2 days, 57 in 3 days, 8 days.
Okay, fantastic. That's brilliant. I'm pleased to see that nobody thinks they should be able to design this in less than a day, and also that we haven't got the other extreme on there as well. So just very, very quickly, for the people or person who said 6 to 8 days is what you would expect it to take, I'm trying to unmute yourself and just tell me what it is you design. No? We might be having a bit of trouble with the mute function there. I guess if you are talking about designing e-learning, then that would probably be realistic. There's no hard and fast rules to how long it should take for you to design training. I've always said it's 3 to 1 for face-to-face. It can take a little bit longer, it can take a little bit less, but certainly as an independent, when I'm going out and I'm charging out my services, 3 to 1 feels like it's the acceptable figure to go to a client with. And it's also a reasonable amount of time to set yourself as well. It can take less. So if you are doing a very much facilitated session where there's an awful lot of practice, so let's say you're running something like a coaching course where there's an awful lot of practice, there's perhaps not quite as much design goes into that because big chunks of your day are practice. And if you are doing something that's very technical, I can understand why it would take you a little bit longer, because you may need to have lots and lots of really detailed examples or case studies or exercises for people to work through. But face-to-face, typically we're saying 3 to 1. I have heard the accepted ratio for e-learning has always been 8 to 1. So 8 hours of development for 1 hour of e-learning. And what we're finding with the virtual is that that seems to be about 5 to 6, 5 or 6 to 1. For the ratio in terms of design to delivery. So it is taking us a little bit longer at the moment. So the first thing I'd like to say to you is, if you feel it takes too long, are you being too optimistic? Like Wile E. Coyote here, who remains completely convinced that one day he's going to catch the Roadrunner, and yet he never does. If we think we're going to design a great course in a day, we are deluding ourselves, frankly. It will definitely take longer than that if you're going to design it properly. Do you think virtual design is taking people longer because we are not used to it? Absolutely, Bryony, and I'm going to come on to that, because for someone like me who's always designed in detail for other people to deliver, it's virtually exactly the same. But a lot of L&D professionals are used to designing for themselves, and the process therefore needs to change a little bit. So thanks for that. I will come on to that in just about 3 slides time. So we'll try a little bit of slide annotation here. So when you are designing, if you can find the annotate tool in Zoom, it'll be floating at the top or the bottom. And if you choose annotating, you should be able to pick a stamp. And if you can just stamp on this slide, where would you normally start? So you've done your initial analysis, you've done your research, and you think, right, I'm now going to start creating this course. Do you use PowerPoint, Word, pen and paper, Post-it notes, spreadsheets, or something else? So are you all able to find the annotate? Oh, Kelly. Kelly, you got a question?
No, I just hit the wrong button.
Pen and paper, I've got two stars for that. A spreadsheet. I'm always fascinated by people who start on spreadsheets. Only because I can't do spreadsheets. Any more for any more? If you're joining on mobile, you might be struggling with this a little bit, I guess. But hopefully you're all on your laptops. Another one for pen and paper there. Post-it notes with a nice tick against them. It's interesting that no one's chosen Word and PowerPoint. Okay, I guess if you're going to annotate, you have done already. I'm pleased to see that we're not starting in PowerPoint, because Words to a lesser extent, but I think a lot of people get into a knot if they start with PowerPoint, because for all sorts of reasons, is that it takes us down a path, and if we haven't fully thought through what it is we're doing, that you end up with an awful lot of rework. Because we're going into the detail before we've actually sketched out the big picture. So Grace, yes, exactly right there. Pen and paper is easier for brainstorming. Oh, and here's our spreadsheet guy. Use spreadsheets, have all the aims, objectives and key activities noted with expected timelines before design. That is such a structured approach. And I don't know if any of you come across the Training Design podcast. There's 8 episodes out at the moment, and we are recording the next season. But my co-host, Terry, he would love you, Phil. You would get on so well. He's so organised. What a great way to go about it. But yeah, Grace, I'm with you. I'm very much a pen and paper or a post-it note sort of a girl. So we start with the big picture, we start with that brainstorming, and it's only when we get into, when we've done a little bit of pruning, that we need to get into the design, because certainly when I've been talking with the training designers, one of the reasons that they do find that it takes too long is that they get too involved in the detail too early, and we have to resist the urge to do that. So what I'm going to do is just see if I can just clear this slide. That's great. And we shall move on to the next one. I thought I'd be talking faster than this, so I apologise. Need to pick up the pace a little bit. So we need to start in the right place, which is with our creative thinking, which is with our divergent thinking. Get all our ideas out on paper, and then and only then should we start picking out which ideas we want to develop, and resist the urge to go back and do more detail in things that we quite like to do but aren't necessarily going to take us where we want to go. So Bryony, to go back to your comment earlier, I think a lot of people who are used to designing for themselves, this is the design process. We know loads of stuff. You're an expert in your field. So you've got all of that knowledge. You've got this library of information in your brain. You think about how you're going to cover it, you have a plan, and you throw yourself into it and hold on, have a bit of a white knuckle ride in the session, and you come out at the end of the session on an adrenaline high because somehow it worked and it was great. And I think a lot of trainers are that used to being able to almost wing it on the day, and we've got a little bit addicted to that adrenaline rush, that this stage here, this planning stage in the middle, has got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, because we know we've got the knowledge as backup, we know we've got the facilitation skills, and there is a temptation to just go in there and see what happens. If something is really well designed, it should feel almost like, yeah, well, of course it worked, because I designed it to within an inch of its life. There was no way, there's no question of it ever failing. So we might end up denying ourselves that adrenaline rush. So is this familiar to you? It's not a model that I use a lot, but it is a very well-known model. It's called the ADDIE model for designing training. And that is where you analyse the training need, you design at the top level, you then develop the detail, you then implement, so you put it into practice, and then you evaluate. And I've had debates with people, and it ends up being about semantics, because I call design, the two Ds for me cover the design together. I don't separate them out. But I think if we're honest, what we tend to do is we analyse the training need. We're quite good at that. We design at a top level, so we do our few notes, or we get a mind map together, or we sketched out a few ideas. We then go and implement, and then it's like, what's next? Done that, move on, what's next? So this is where I think, as Bryony, as you said, as we've moved into virtual, this top level design isn't enough anymore. We need to do more of the detailed design, and that's where we're feeling a little bit frustrated, where we think things are taking too long, and where we're feeling a bit cross with ourselves, really, and we're feeling like we aren't good enough. Well, actually you are, you're just not in the habits maybe of designing to that level. So let's talk about a slightly more reliable process than have some brilliant ideas and go on our roller coaster. Sometimes we need to get back to basics, because getting back to basics will strengthen our foundations, and you will not fail, unless your tech fails, of course. But thank you, Petra, for making sure I haven't fallen over today. So my 4 pillars of training design are these, and we'll go through them in order very, very briefly. We need to start off with why, then we consider who, then we look at what, and then and only then do we consider how. So let's take each of those in turn. The first pillar is why. And I've chosen this picture here because that shows a knight on a quest. What is our quest? What is our adventure? What is the problem that we need to solve, or the opportunity that we need to maximize? And this is, partly to do with your training needs analysis, but really understanding that one overriding goal is what will give us our direction. It will keep us on the straight and narrow. It will stop us going down rabbit holes and interesting side roads. Particularly if designing for virtual, you haven't got the luxury of that anymore. We do have to keep it really, really focused. So it will set our boundaries and keep us focused. So how do we define why? Again, if you want to type anything in chat as to, that overriding purpose for the training, where do you get that from? I would say open your mics, but then there's always the danger that people are going to end up talking over each other. So clients, nice and succinct there, Bev, yeah. I get that as well. I work obviously with talented L&D managers, and they have done their training needs analysis, so I don't usually need to do it again. So talk to the audience and the client. Yes, key stakeholders, Kelly, absolutely right. What are we looking for when we're trying to define why? Yeah, Bryony, really important to get it agreed before we move forward. Trying to find out what you're going to achieve. Yes, so really trying to be specific with what it is we're looking for. Objectives to evaluation. Oh, that's a big conversation. What is the end result that they want? Loving that, Kelly. That's really succinct. If it's an external client, how they might evaluate. Yeah, so what does success look like? How will we know that we've been effective? Yeah, cool. So I think there's lots and lots of things that you do already, and this doesn't change no matter how you are designing training. And when we're doing a training needs analysis, it's about getting that information, isn't it? Getting the data. So we are looking for stats and data, but we're also looking for stories. And I'm a great believer in using both to help us to really understand what it is we are trying to achieve with our training. So I love stories too. And sometimes they can be more powerful than data. Depends what it is you are covering. So the outcome is the final destination. If you are in sales training or you've done any sales training, it's the benefit of doing that training. It's the ultimate outcome. And if we can express that in one compelling sentence that defines the transformation, then I think we're really clear in our mind what it is that training is all about. It's not about having paragraphs. It's not about vagaries. It's one sentence that will say, if you do this training, this is what you will be able to do as a result of it. So what will they be able to do then that they can't do now? How will we see, hear or feel that is different? And that is very much linking into what a lot of you were saying there about how are we going to evaluate it, how are we going to measure success. So this is your why. And it sounds really simple, and I make no apologies for going back to basics with this, but having that why written in one compelling sentence, visible, will keep you on the straight and narrow, and it will stop you going off track. You do, of course, have to be absolutely happy that the why is correctly defined. Otherwise, you could write a brilliant training course that doesn't achieve what actually people want it to achieve. So that is pillar number one. Pillar number two is who. Who is our training for? So who exactly will be completing the training? And it's best if we can really define that as clearly as possible. Understanding their starting point. So where are they now? What's the gap between where they are now and what they need to be? So you've done your gap analysis. And the training should take them directly from point A to point B, particularly now we've gone virtual. And people don't want to be sitting looking at a screen for 3-4 hours, whereas they might be quite happy to spend a whole day in a training room because there's biscuits and lunch and a nice chat, and they're seeing people they haven't seen for a while. We have to be a lot more directive now as we go into the virtual. I'm going to tell a very quick story. I'm just keeping an eye on the time. Is that I was working with a large insurance company about 3 years ago to help them put a potential managers program together. It was very strangely set up in that they kind of had two L&D teams for different divisions. And I was working with one division, and the other division got a little bit upset because they said, well, we have got this. Why are you bringing an external provider? We have got this content. So understandably, you know, don't reinvent the wheel. So I had a look at what they'd got, and it was great. You know, it was a really well-designed course. Couldn't fault it in any way, except it was way above potential managers. If you were delivering to middle managers who perhaps got at least 5 years experience, if not 10, it would have been spot on. But we really need to define who it is for. Otherwise, your brilliant training is just either going to go over the heads of somebody or fall flat because they can't see the relevance in it for themselves. So I have another poll for you. Before you start typing in with this one, this is going to create a word cloud. So if you leave spaces between your words, they will separate in the cloud and they will be meaningless. So if you want to write, for example, observe, enroll, write observe, enroll, all as one word. And if you want to capitalize the start of those words, then that would be helpful. So just short answers. How might you understand and define your participants? Oh, I think I might need to click it to make it work. Sometimes I have to do that. Yay, there we go. Study them. Well done. Writing it all as one word. Ask the client. Brilliant. Ask questions, yeah. Just as you're filling this in, it brings to mind a very long time ago, I read a story about how to improve efficiency at tills in a well-known superstore, a DIY superstore indeed it was. So they'd done all this analysis and they'd come up with this really great training. And actually what would have made the biggest difference from the people who were doing the job, as far as they were concerned, is, can we have a stapler each? Because they had about 3 staplers between all of them, and of course a lot of clients, particularly trade clients, want their receipts stapling together. So they wasted hours of a week looking for staplers. So ask them, get it from the horse's mouth. The gap analysis, ask them to fill in a pro forma to see the now and ideal future. Yay, I can read long words. TNA on them, study them. Look at LinkedIn profiles. That's a good one if you're doing external training. Poll them beforehand. Absolutely. Speak to them beforehand. Survey Monkey. Yeah, brilliant. Do some sort of survey. Spend some time with them. I find that absolutely so useful when I go in to write a bespoke program. I always ask for 2 or 3 days in the business just to get a feel for the environment that they work in, how they talk to each other, the routine tasks they have to do, and you just absorb so much that really helps you to understand your ideal participant. Cool. Yeah, so loads of great ideas there. So it is about getting multiple perspectives, isn't it, and getting your information from multiple sources. Because what we ideally want to do, I'm going to move off this now. And see if it will move on, is to, oh, I didn't clear. Oh, that's, just clear that. Is to create an avatar. And I find this incredibly useful. So the more detailed we can create a character who is the ideal participant in our training, the more likely we are to design training that will meet their needs. Now, sometimes that isn't possible if you're doing an induction course, for example. If you're doing a global program, we've got to be careful that we don't stereotype people too much, but having some sort of basic avatar can really, really help us to deliver a meaningful training session to the right people. And that is something that I always do. I remember going and learning about my transport supervisors. And whenever I say transport supervisor, bang, I can see Derek clear as anything in my mind. I know what he does, I know how he talks, I know what he's interested in, I know what floats his boat, I know what he does at the weekend. But Derek is an amalgamation of all the different transport people that I met. And it made my training design so much easier when I was designing a program for them. So that is pillar number 2. So we've done why, what is the outcome, what is the compelling outcome. 2 is Who is it for? Having that clear in your mind. Pillar 3 is what. What are we going to cover in our training? And pillar 3 is huge. And it comprises of two things. It comprises of defining your objectives and selecting your content. And together they give us the what. Now, given that we only have an hour today, I'm not going to go through how to define objectives. You're probably already really good at that anyway. But objectives are really important because they provide the hooks that we can hang our training on, and they lead to our outcome. So our outcome is super clear. That is why we are doing this training. That is the benefit. In order to get from where we are now to where we need to be, there are certain stepping stones that we need to hit, and those stepping stones are defined by your outcomes. They define the journey. So actually they are as much for us as they are for the learner. They help to keep us on track as we are doing the design, and they do allow a simple evaluation, of course, as well. Yes, it's only a simple one because ultimately people have to go away and apply the learning to bring about business benefit. But if we have done our analysis and our research correctly, and if we have chosen our objectives carefully, if people achieve these objectives, they should achieve that outcome. So they do allow the simple objectives. So in terms of content, selecting content, chosen this picture on purpose because even after 25 years of designing training, I am still guilty of trying to cram too much in. Oh, let's have a look here, Bryony. I've been working for a training director who believes in writing the objectives at the end of the process. Now that's interesting because you should always define them up front, but I say draft them because then I refine them at the end, because as you are just putting in your detail, your thoughts do crystallize a little bit. So I'm kind of halfway between the two of you with that. We should definitely have some draft objectives at the start, but we can go back and refine them. So content, we're all guilty of trying to cram too much in because we have so much that we want to share. I mean, even now, I've got like 16 minutes left and I've still got about 30 minutes worth of content to share with you because I want to share my expertise. So when we are choosing our content, we have to be really, really ruthless with it. We have to be thinking about our avatar, thinking about where they are and what they need to go. There's so much that we could tell them. There's so much that they might like to know, but what exactly are we going to include? So the great thing with virtual that we perhaps don't have quite as much with face-to-face is that we can break it down into modules and we can do a lot more of self-directed learning as well. So we can signpost additional things to people. So if you're interested in learning more, which is what I'll do at the end of this, if you're interested, you can find out more here, here, and here. If this has been enough for you, then that's great. So we need to really concentrate on the core content. So I was going to do this as an exercise, but I am mindful of the time. But let's just think about if we were writing a course on tackling performance issues, quite a broad title, how might we select our content differently depending on if we were aiming that at first line managers in a production setting as opposed to senior partners in a law firm as opposed to HR advisors. I'm not talking about methods here. I'm talking about, actual content that we include. So if this is something that you know anything about at all, yes, thank you, Bev. Just put 1 or 2 examples in the chat. So levels of responsibility and impact, that would be different in the courses, wouldn't it? That would include a lot more in some and a lot less in the other. Anyone else want to pop anything into the chat as to how you might tailor your content depending on your avatar and your why? The examples used, yeah, that is a brilliant way to make something more complicated or simplify something, your examples and your case studies. And often it is the level of detail, isn't it, that we go into, the language use, that's a good one as well. So if we are training first line managers in a production setting, we might need to think more about convincing them why they need to have that difficult conversation, why they need to call out poor performance, and a lot more on that sort of piece. Whereas with your HR advisors, they're already bought into that. They need to perhaps think about how they are going to follow through the more complicated processes with regard to performance issue. What's in it for the managers? Yeah. So make it really relevant to them, make them want to do it, whereas perhaps the HR advisor is much more about how we're going to do it. Senior partners in a law firm, maybe getting them thinking about the impact on the business, and some typical examples as well. So we tackle the same topic, but in a different way. So we wouldn't necessarily put the same level of, or even the same core topics in for one group as we would for the other, but it's still a performance issue. It just brought me to mind, actually, I remember time management is a classic. I should have used that as the example. So if you ask someone to write a time management course, some people will go away and focus very much on using Outlook and scheduling tools and diary management. And other people will go and write a course all about, you know, energy levels and mindfulness and our attitude to time. And they're both completely valid, depending on your audience and depending on what the why is that we are trying to achieve. So that's why it comes back to having that clarity. So remember, when we are selecting content, it's not about showcasing your expertise. It's about them achieving what matters to them. They can always come back for more. It's just about, how do I solve this problem? How do I do this thing that I want to do? And giving them just enough to do whatever it is they want to do. And the fourth pillar is how. Some people start with how first, and this is when we can get ourselves in a knot. If we start with a really cool tool or a really great exercise that we want to include, we end up trying to find content to fit it and then trying to squeeze it in to suit the needs of the people and then trying to convince them that they've got a need. Is completely the wrong way round. How we bring training to life is the last thing that we look at. And just like the what, this has got two enormous parts to it. One is structure and the other is methods. And together they give us the how we are going to bring this training to life. Structure for me is so important, and I'm going to share with you at a very top line the structure that I use. If you want more of this, you can go and look it up for yourself. But the way a training course will flow is everything. It has to flow logically. It has to be easy to follow. It makes learning so much easier. And it allows us to measure progress as well, because we can see as we're reaching our destination. It's not just pockets of random stuff that we're throwing at people. It is very much a journey, and the content builds as we go through the whole session. I use an acronym called MASTER, which I didn't invent. I wish I did, but I've covered this a lot. So there's a lot of things about this in my Training Designers Club. I cover it. But it stands for mindset, so getting people in the right mindset, acquiring information, giving them information, allowing them to sift for the meaning, trigger the memory, exhibit the learning, and reflect and review. If you haven't come across this before, I will signpost some stuff at the end, but if you Google Master and Colin Rose, spell out the flower, so Colin Rose, that's his acronym, and honestly, it's a game changer. If you do nothing else as a result of today, I suggest you go and look up Master, and if you follow that when you design your training, you will not go wrong. And then the last thing to think about with our how is thinking about methods. Now, these days, we have to be entertainers, don't we? It's all about capturing people's imagination. You've got to, we've got so much to compete with, really. But I would say to you, no, we are not Netflix. We mustn't get distracted by the latest shiny object and chasing whistles and bells. Yes, we have to make our training engaging. If people zone out, they're not going to learn anything. So we do have to do what we can to make it engaging and gain and retain attention. but high quality content that is relevant to your learner will win every time. So I think I've got one more poll for us to have a go at, and it is a word cloud like it was before. So not just in training, but think about what types of things will gain and retain your attention generally. So what makes you stop scrolling through Facebook and actually read an article? What makes you stop when you're on your daily walk and look at something in a bit more detail? What makes you actually put your phone down and properly listen to someone who is talking to you? What makes you choose your next box set on Netflix? So relevance, yes, how relevant it is to us. Thank you. How relevant it is to us at the time. Oh, this is turning into a winner, this one. Anything else that captures our attention? If you're struggling with poll everywhere, you can just type in the chat. I've got the chat open. Words that speak to me. Oh, that's lovely. What's in it for me? I don't know who's writing these things, so I can't compliment you individually. A purpose, yeah? Catchy titles, yeah, something that piques your curiosity. Yeah, that would be a good thing. Helping to discussions, I think.
Sorry, Sheridan, it's just typos. So what I meant to say was, I think people like helping each other.
Yes,
so
yeah.
Thinking about activities where they're perhaps working together on a problem that one of them's got, or something along those lines.
Definitely, yeah. So working together, that sense of togetherness.
Yeah.
So isn't this interesting? What we say actually gains and retains our attention. And it's exactly the same for our delegates. So we don't need to go all fancy and have whizzy graphics and things zooming in left, right and centre. We don't need to use something like this poll everywhere, but it is nice to keep people engaged. So to have some sort of interaction in whatever format is always useful to have. Yet visuals, so nice visuals can really capture our attention. Cool. I'm just going to move on from this slide as we are starting to get towards the end, but essentially it's all about people, isn't it? It's all about people. It's about engaging stories, having a great example that we actually want to learn from. It's about asking great questions and those impactful images, as someone put on that word cloud. It's about having that great conversation, which is exactly what we were just talking about there. The feeling of being listened to, that what I say matters, and making those connections. Oh, and someone said learning styles as well. So having the opportunity to interact in a way that feels good for you. So it's all about people. This is how it's actually very little to do with the tech. And this I discovered a few weeks ago, and it is now my favourite quote. If you think that a computer program will design great training for you, you are very much mistaken. You design great training, you. It's always been by people, for people. A computer program can only ever make it look pretty or make it easy to present. So don't get seduced by the expensive packages that are out there. The challenge should always come from the learning session itself, not from using the tech. And that's one of the reasons I used one extra thing in this, and it was only poll everywhere. I could have used other things, but to try and make sure that everyone can get onto it, everybody knows how to use it, it's distracting and it's frustrating if it doesn't work for you and you lose flow in your session as well. Now, I appreciate as a webinar, this has been very one way, and in a training session, it's a lot more interactive than this. But you're quite right, audiences do still need that human connection and being able to talk through things and using your breakout rooms, using your full group chat if your group is small enough still trumps pretty much everything, to be honest. So don't feel pressured into buying lots of expensive things or feeling that you have to suddenly have an IT degree. Learn to use the basics, use them well, use them appropriately, and you can still create a really, really engaging session. So in summary, I haven't got my glasses on. First thing is be realistic with yourself, and I'm delighted to see that most of you expect it to take 3 days to design a training session. People feel it takes longer because they don't set aside dedicated time, and that is something that you really need to do when you're designing training. It's just like facilitation. You can't do half an hour here and half an hour there in between meetings. You're going to lose your focus, you're going to get yourself in a knot, and it is going to take forever. So be realistic with how long it's going to take, set aside dedicated time, and you can write a really decent course in 3 days or less. Start in the right place and in the right way. So start with pen and paper, start with your divergent thinking before you start nailing down the specifics. Always be clear about your outcome first, then choose your content, and then your methods last. Don't do it the other way around, else you're just going to end up doing loads and loads of rework, and that's when it gets frustrating. Remember, it's about the participants, not you. So although you may want to talk about your pet subject, you may have a great story to tell. If it's not going to help them on their journey, resist the urge. Hold on to it. Human interaction trumps fancy tech any day of the week. And if you use the 4 pillars of why, who, what, and how in that order, you won't go far wrong. So I did promise you some freebies. I do have a platform which is on Teachable. You can see the link there. There is a course which covers these 4 things in more detail. That isn't free, but it is on its introductory price. So if you want to learn more, just as a refresher, that's a really good course to enroll on. The price is going up in August, but at the moment it's still introductory. But on that platform, you will find 2 free resources. So one is common mistakes people make when they're training. They're just narrated presentations. And then the other one is this one, which I've highlighted, which is 12 ways to bring virtual training to life without spending any money or being a technical genius. So you just have to enroll to do that. It's completely free. You can join the Training Designers Club as well as the L&D Mastermind, and we have slightly different focuses, and James and I are very supportive of each other's communities. But if you think that training design is way too complicated, way too time consuming and way too boring, you can buy ready written training materials and adapt it. And if you just go to powerhour.co.uk, you can browse, and 10 of them have already been converted for virtual delivery. So in the nick of time, I'd like to say thank you so much for attending today. I hope you found something that was useful. I am willing to stay on and answer any questions, either verbally or in chat, or if you need to shoot off, you can do that. Someone's asking for slide 33, which is the summary slide. So there you go. I believe that James is recording this, so I don't know where the recordings happen, Petra, or if he's just recorded it so he can watch himself, I don't know.
The recording is happening, and it's going to be put into the membership where people can see it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lovely. So that was very much a whistle-stop tour. Training design is a huge topic, which is why I've got a whole club dedicated to it. But as I said, thank you so much. I'm happy to stay on for 10 minutes if anyone wants to talk to me informally. If not, go and get some lunch and have a great day.
Thank you so much, Sheridan. This was amazing. I really enjoyed it, and I really love that you said that we do not have to have an IT degree to do
You do not.
I think that lots of time people get put off with all those shiny objects and, you know, doing everything was happening. And so thank you very much. I really, really enjoyed it. I'm sure everyone did. So if anyone has any questions, guys, you can type them, unmute yourself. I'm happy to stay as well. Otherwise, yeah, big thanks to Sheridan. As I said, the recording is going to be put into the membership. So if you're not in the membership, go in. during the, there are plenty of information about it on the Facebook group. But I think lots of people is actually already in. And yeah, thank you so much, Sheridan. It was very, very good. I really enjoyed it.
Good. Yeah, I do talk quite a lot when I get going. I sort of do as I say, not as I do. But I always find webinars are a little bit different, aren't they?
Yes, but
different training sessions.
It's if we've had a whole day, we could use those slides which we've had today for the whole day, and we would all have, things to say. So I think it would be
Indeed. Okay. So I'm just seeing who else is here, and if anyone has any questions that they want to ask.
Sheridan, could I just ask something? And I've put my camera back on, and I feel as though I'm one of the floating heads off the Queen cover.
Well, you're not blue. You're not blue now, so that's
It's because I've got a black T-shirt on, so I just blend into the background. I didn't really think about that beforehand today. With the poll that you used, would you ever send that poll out to people beforehand? And the only reason I ask is that when you threw it in there, I couldn't figure out how to minimise the Zoom app to be able to put it into another browser.
Oh, right.
So I then ended up kind of typing on my phone, which I wouldn't have been able to do if I was on my phone watching the presentation. So if you were doing it with a group of people, it wasn't quite webinar fashion as it is here, and it was more of a kind of planned, know who you've got in your group and things like that. Do you think that would be a good idea, to kind of give them a heads up of certain things beforehand?
I think that if it was a question that wasn't integral to the session, so if you want to use it almost as part of an icebreaker, getting to know you, then you probably could do, but I'd embedded it into my slide, so it didn't actually become live until I clicked the slide.
Right.
So, but that's just the way I've done it. You can actually just set them up as standalone in the website, and the website's called polleverywhere.com.
Right. Okay.
So you can, I believe you can do it both ways.
Okay. That's all I wanted. Thank you.
Oh.
Are you close to me, Brian? Is it you that's in St Helens?
No, I'm in Bolton.
You're in Bolton.
So not a million miles away.
No, you're not. No, not at all.
My husband's a St Helens Rugby League fan, so we're in St Helens fairly frequently.
Yeah, and I'm in Bolton quite a lot because pre-COVID, my son plays badminton for Lancashire.
Oh, right, okay.
So we're often training up in Bolton. Yeah, he often goes training at the arena.
Yeah, my husband's walking around with his Liverpool shirt on today because he's very happy. Put himself a virtual background on their morning Zoom coffee meeting with work this morning with the award ceremony from last night.
I don't understand we have fireworks going off at 11 o'clock at night, and I'm thinking, couldn't they have given them the cup at a sensible hour? What is wrong with that? So
well, the weird thing was that during the match there were fireworks going off while they were still playing. So I can only assume they were fans outside.
Yeah.
But you think, how idiotic, because that distracts the players, which might mean the match doesn't go as well. But
yeah,
I'm obviously far too sensible.
No. Well, football, what can you do?
Yeah. Thanks very much for your time today. Much appreciated.
Welcome. Nice to meet you.
You too.
Right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you again, Sheridan. If we don't have any more questions.
I've got a quick question.
Oh, yeah, Beth. Sorry.
My question, I'm going to be working on an induction program.
Yeah.
And my fear with any design is the stakeholder or the client changing their mind partway through.
Yeah.
So how do I get to grips with nailing them down? Obviously, there has to be some flexibility as you're building.
Yes.
And I get that. But how do we actually nail them down to within a scope of flexibility that's acceptable to both?
Well, it's like nailing jelly to a wall, isn't it? That really. But when I've done induction programs or large programs, and it doesn't prevent it, but it helps, is I always do a two-stage design. So I always design a detailed outline first, to say these are the modules and this is what they're going to cover. Is that okay? So then you've kind of got permission, and then if you design it modular, hopefully if they change their minds, it's only going to mean changing one bit rather than everything.
Yeah.
And it's just going back to them at key stages, I think, and just, you know, making them aware that if they change that. The thing that really used to frustrate me with clients, and bless them, I mean, I've done it myself with websites and things, is to say, oh, can we just change what we call that? And you think, because now I have to change it in every document for every session, and it's a 3-hour job.
Yeah.
And for a minor change, so it can be quite a challenge. So yeah, a bit of education piece, but I don't think you're ever going to eliminate it completely, Bev.
No, and it's understanding their tone of voice, isn't it? You know, their corporate language, their corporate way of speaking.
Yeah.
As an outsider, I think that's my biggest issue at the minute.
Yeah. I mean, I've always taken the attitude when working with clients that they are absolutely within their right to tell me what they want covered. That is down to them. But it's almost a little bit like, trust me on the how. This is why you've brought me in. Trust me, I'm a trainer. I know how to bring this to life. So don't temper too much with the how. I get it across when we do that.
Yeah, definitely. I've really enjoyed it. It's been really effective use of my time today. So
okay.
thank you
well,
very much,
if you're not in the
Sheridan.
training designers, come and join that as well. It's a free group just like James's. So.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. And
Okay,
thanks so much, Petra, for organising it. Wonderful.
On holidays as well. What a star.
It's okay. It's okay. It was worth it, you know, so I enjoyed myself as well. So all good, all good.
Kelly, have you got a question?
No, I didn't want to be rude and leave. I was just listening to what everyone else was saying. And also about the onboarding, because that's a project I'm working on at the minute as well. So I was just wondering what we're going to be discussed about that.
I've actually got some stuff on one of my websites on onboarding as well. So it's worth having a route around.
Just join the membership one there. So I work for Maflan, so I work for one business and do the onboarding.
Oh, do you know, years and years ago, I wrote one of your very first induction programs. It was me. I did it. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I wanted to be a buyer. I got so seduced by the buyers. I thought they were so exotic.
Oh yeah, they're not. I work with them and I'm like, it's so glamorous that you go to all these countries, and they're like, yeah, it's not. Like you're in and out and you see nothing.
yeah, exactly. Just see the factory.
Yeah.
Okie dokie then. Well, thank you, Petra. I'll let you get back to your holiday, my lovely.
Thank you. It's a working holiday.
Yeah, and if you let me know when the recording's ready as well, I would really appreciate that.
Yes, definitely. I leave it up to James. I'm not sure how he does that, what he does with it, but yeah. Thank you so much, Serena. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. Sending you nice regards from Czech Republic. This is where I sit now. Yes, have a good rest of the week and enjoy the weekend afterwards. Thank you so much, guys. Take care.
Cheers.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye.